time to be the GOAT. It's time to enter God mode, man, let's get it going. I wanna be the greatest, energy is overflowing. I know I'm stoking the fire, my desire's taking over, not time.
Okay, you beautiful friends, welcome back to the bag that's in my truck. And you could tell by the thumbnail, you could tell by the title, we are on Learning the Lore number 5 of Adventure Time. And you could tell by the thumbnail, we are about to jump into the Simon and Marcy storyline from that episode that I want to do a reaction to. And I know I said it ain't out of the question, but at the same time, that takes me to a completely different mode, and I'm interested in learning the lore in this style as opposed to doing reactions, because when I do reactions, I just hit the play button and whatever comes out of my mouth as I'm watching it comes out. And as I'm doing it in this mode, I get to pause it, try to, really reflect on my thoughts. Granted, sometimes they don't come out the way I'm wanting them to, but I get to take my time a little bit more with this one. Now, I'm going into this video blind. I don't really know the creator. I don't know anything about anything. All I know is I got a nice little thumbnail here. If it comes up on camera good enough, then you know which one it is. It's the title card to the Simon and Marcy episodes. So, other than that, I really don't know what else to add, so I think I need to shut up, and we need to just jump into this episode. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to put my old headphones on here, block out the world that's outside of this semi-truck, and just hit this play button. And once I do that, y'all know what happens. We switch around, and I go to that small screen up there and give y'all's eyes a break from me. And y'all get to just watch the video with me, with my commentary. Y'all know how commentaries are, so if you want to watch it without all my interruptions, go down to the description and possibly pin comment if I remember, and go check out the video without all my stuff. I can't remember the creator who did it, but they will be linked below, so please go check them out. And if you're back now from going to check them out, thanks for coming back, and let's hit this play button in 3, 2, 1, and play.
While the brilliance of I Remember You was hidden with a synopsis that makes it sound like any other Goofy episode in the series, that's not at all the case with its follow-up episode, Simon and Marcy, as there was no chance that Marceline telling the story of her and Ice King's past would result in anything besides a terrific 11 minutes. But besides the plethora of background storytelling and great performances in this episode, as well as the likely intentional parallels to Cormac McCarthy's The Road, what really makes it stand out in the 10 years since it first aired is how much focus it puts onto characterizing Simon and his forced descent into madness, and that's what we're talking about today. In this last pre-Fiona and Cake video, we're going to go through the episode, discuss the surprisingly sweet frame story and the unsurprisingly devastating tale within, and break down how Marcy and Simon's adventures depict the creation of Adventure Time's initial antagonist in such a memorably gut-wrenching way.
Pause. Okay. So I didn't want to make it play that long, like a minute and 10 seconds. It's very out of the norm for me, but I was really wanting to let him finish laying the groundwork for what he's doing here. And okay, so like I said earlier in my intro, I'm going into this blind. I didn't know if I was getting a recap. I didn't know what I was getting. So this tells me that there's been 2 episodes, and one of those episodes was entitled I Remember You, and then the second episode was entitled Simon and Marcy. So I'm presuming we're going through both episodes. Hopefully we're going through both. This is a 13-minute long video, so hopefully I didn't make a mistake choosing this specific video. But I have a feeling he's not going to disappoint, so let's roll with this and see where he goes. And play.
Whoa! Marceline, I'm open. I'm wide open.
Given this episode's title and synopsis, it doesn't waste much time pretending that it's going to be a typically goofy episode of the show. We do get a quick glimpse into the frame story with Finn and Jake playing basketball against the episode's titular pair, a scene that begins to show some character growth from the Marceline who sung of having to constantly flee Simon back in I Remember You, as she begins to tell a curious Finn and Jake the story of her and Simon's past. Before getting into the meat of her tale, I do want to talk about two of the through lines in this one.
Pause. Okay, before he gets to those through lines in that, so it looks like we're only going to get one of the episodes, and that means I'm only going to get half the story. But I think we're also going to be getting the story of them in their past, because the way he's wording it is that Marceline was going to tell Finn and Jake the story behind them. So I'm hoping we get the past and how they met and all that good stuff. I don't want present day Marceline and Ice King. I want the tragic backstory, Marceline and Simon. So yeah, let's continue and play.
With the first of these being the comedy in the episode. While a lot of the jokes in this one, as Simon tries to get Marcy's mind off of the apocalypse, are more sweet than funny, jokes like the clambulance, the motorcycle crashing into the city, and Simon trying to teach Marcy not to vandalize,
Vandalism is wrong, Marcy.
Okay.
are all pretty genuinely funny, all without taking away from the gut-wrenching story taking place. Speaking of which, the second thing I want to quickly mention is just how mind-blowing the voice acting is in this one. Ava Akers, who plays the young Marceline, does such a fantastic job in both the goofier moments in this one, as well as the genuinely tragic ones. And it shouldn't come as a surprise, the masterclass that Tom Kenny puts on in this episode. While a lot of his voice roles, both in and outside of the series, are comedy focused, it's episodes like this that truly show how much of a generational voice talent Tom Kenny truly is. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the rest of this video without mentioning either one of those things, but I thought I would give them a quick mention before getting into the bulk of the story.
Pause. Okay, so yes, I know I pause quite often, but I don't want to make it where I'm just sitting here like, okay, yeah, okay. So, yes, we're not into the story yet, but I'm glad that he does give praise to the voice acting that we got in this, because Tom Kenny is very underrated with some of the stuff that he does do. So, yes, I'm glad that he praised him for that. I'm glad that, I don't know who the voice actress was for the young Marceline, but I'm also glad that he gives her praise as well. I'm pretty sure I've probably heard her before. Not sure where, but I'm sure I have, because the voice just sounds familiar in my head. Other than that, I think he's about to really get into the bulk of this now and probably start hitting us with the story of Simon and Marceline. So,
speaking of which, the time card as we transition into the old OO explicitly mentions that this frame story is taking place on the anniversary of the events of the episode, which while this is possibly just to emphasize the importance of this specific Simon and Marcy story, I think it also implies that since such a traumatic event just happened to take place on the same day that Marcy decided to tell this story, that these kinds of memorably traumatic events as Simon succumbed to the crown were quite prevalent in a young Marcy's life. Because this episode is a flashback to a story that we already know the ending to, it never tries to artificially raise the stakes in any way, as the premise of an immortal Marcy getting a pretty mild cold doesn't exactly affect the audience in the same way that it does a frantic Simon. And because of this, the episode is more focused on having specific moments that highlight both the pair's relationship and how it's affected by Simon's use of the crown and subsequent loss of his sanity. After 2 really sweet moments between the pair, with Simon making Marcy smile as much as he can, we get to the first real moment of tension in the episode.
Pause. Before we jump into that tension moment, okay, so we're about 10 seconds past 4 minutes into this video, and I'm going to leave it up to y'all in the comments if this video doesn't feel like it gives a thorough explanation of, you know, the Simon and Marceline story. Please leave a link down in the leave a link down in the comments below, because I think I've got it where links are allowed down there. Leave a link to a video that really truly describes it, because as of right now, I feel like this video that I chose is not really giving us the story. And I'm here for the story and the lore and the heartache and the heartbreak and just everything that comes along with this, and I'm just not feeling it with this video. No offense, by some chance the creator of this does watch it, I'm just not feeling it yet. And we still got 9 minutes left to go in this video. So if this does not pan out the way I'm expecting, then please let me know. So yeah, either way, let's continue and see where this tension goes, and play.
As the two of them hear rustling in the bushes, with Marcy begging Simon to not put on the crown, something that he eventually deems necessary to do anyway, immediately bursting into an only slightly less manic and surprisingly cruel version of the Ice King from a millennia later. And in a moment that highlights the full harshness of this version of Ooh, even after the rustler is revealed to be the most innocent creature in the form of a deer, a crazed Simon still freezes the creature, with a later scene confirming that Simon and Marcy do indeed kill and cook the buck. Before then though, Marcy has to forcefully remove the crown from Simon, and for a few moments afterwards, he's still in full Ice King mode, manically laughing while Marcy is petrified at what she's seeing. While Simon is able to eventually get back into Simon mode and reassure Marcy that he's going to be okay, that facade, just like his glasses, is beginning to crack.
Okay, so what I'm seeing so far is that Marcy just wants Simon to be Simon. But Simon feels like he can use the crown to protect Marcy when he senses danger around. Granted, there was no danger. What was in the bushes was just an innocent little deer. But then he has the crown on, and he can't stop himself no more once he has that crown on. So now it's up to Marcy to sit there and protect Simon from the crown and physically remove it from him himself. So for Marcy to be as young as she is and impressionable as she is, and this is the only figure she has in her life right now that I can see. This is a dad figure / uncle figure / friend / companion / whatever other, positive figure you can put on that label that's within Simon. So she knows that if she lets him continue with that crown, that it's going to end up corrupting him completely, and she's going to completely lose him as Simon. So that's what I'm getting so far from just that little scene right there. So hopefully this video doesn't do me dirty and gives me a good, complete, coherent story. So cool beans, let's continue and
The deer cooks in the background, Simon continues to try and cheer Marcy up, doing a puppet show version of Cheers, even beginning with the iconic theme song that we'll spend more time diving into when it comes back at the end of the episode. It's at this point when Marcy begins showing symptoms, which immediately causes the woefully unprepared Simon to start freaking out. And even though this episode never directly mentions it, she happens to come down with a cold right after a manic Simon sprinkles her with snow, perhaps implying that her illness is yet another way that the use of the crown has hurt Marcy. While it is somewhat comedic to watch him desperately search for chicken soup as if it was some kind of cure-all, it's also representative of just how clueless Simon is when it comes to how to raise a little girl, let alone one that's half demon and in the middle of an apocalypse. I will go ahead and say, before every single comment beats me to it, that the original draft for this episode featured Marceline getting significantly sicker, and the pair looking for actual medicine instead, something deemed too dark by CN.
Pause. Okay, so, yes, I let it play on longer than I actually wanted to there, because I wanted to stop it right after they talked about dusting her with some snow. Jeez. You know, what's going through my head right now is the fact that this video is covering Simon and Marcy episode and not I Remember You. I'm wondering, how the heck did she even become a vampire? So what I might need to do after we get done watching this one and all that stuff, not tonight of course, but maybe I need to go and find the full story of Marceline and watch that, because I still don't even know how she became a vampire. I vaguely know, but I don't know. It's one of those things. And by the way, I can hear it outside these headphones. I got some trucks over here beside me, I feel like. If you hear it, I apologize. If you don't hear it, cool beans, then I'm complaining for nothing. But yeah, the dusting of the snow on Marceline, yeah, that is probably what kind of gave her a little bit of a cold. But at the same time, I see Simon doesn't understand that she's probably she isn't that she's probably immortal. Simon doesn't know that she's immortal, so her getting a cold after this apocalypse happened, he feels like she's gonna die, and he also feels bad for dusting her with the snow because he now probably figures it's his fault. So, oh my gosh, so many emotions are going through Simon right now. And I know he's going to end up putting that crown back on and becoming the Ice King again and losing himself. I don't know. Either way, let's continue. And
you can see this part of the episode's past in a few different places in the episode, like the Supery making a lot more sense as a pharmacy, as well as the joke with Simon thinking the Clambulance is a food truck, making a lot more sense if he thinks it's an ambulance, which would have medicine. Whether or not you believe that the original story is what actually happened, and Marcy is either misremembering or intentionally toning down her tale, is up to you, but I'm ultimately going to treat the events of the episode as if they happened as presented, as I think that's ultimately what's canon to the series. Speaking of which, as Simon and Marcy explore the ultimately empty Supery, we get two pretty interesting moments for Simon, the first of which being the card that he happens to pick up, the front of which reading, "Hey old man," highlighting how the crown has transformed the 47-year-old Simon into somebody who looks much older, as it actively destroys his human body. The other character moment for Simon in this one is far less subtle, as after he prepares to use the crown to stop the Oozer who follow the pair, Marcy once again begs for him to preserve his sanity, and he actually fulfills his promise from earlier, using the crown simply as a giant hunk of metal and fleeing the scene with Marcy, as Simon realizes that he managed to get through a troubling situation without having to wear the crown, as he begins to falsely hope that he might be able to evade its grasp.
Pause. Okay. So, again, didn't mean for it to play that long, but it is what it is. So, cool. There's a little bit of lore I didn't know. Because in Fiona and Cake, Simon, well, there's obviously a lot that led up to Fiona and Cake, and that's why Simon's back to being normal and who he is, and even physically. So, yeah, holding the card saying, "Hey, old man." He's 47 in this episode, which, don't get me wrong, there's some people out there that don't age that well. And some people look 47 when, you know, they got a full beard and hair like, you know, now Simon has, thanks to the crown. So a lot of it, though, is due to the fact that he does keep putting the crown on. So it is accelerating, you know, his age. But, yeah, "Hey, old man" could also be another little dig at him in his own head, with him thinking, "I'm nothing but an old man. What if I get sick? Who's going to take care of Marceline? I'm getting old. Hopefully I can last long enough to take care of her until she's able to take care of herself." So she's, you know, he's got a couple different things going through his head, because 47 isn't a spring chicken anymore. And yeah, there's lots of people out there who have a full head of gray hair and a full gray beard at that age. I actually might end up with a full head of gray hair and a gray beard. Granted, I did just kind of cut everything off recently, but when I have it out a little bit, I actually got a lot of gray hairs in there, and I'm not 47 yet. I'm almost a decade away from that, honestly. So, yeah, it's yeah, I mean, people age terribly. If I had this fully out like this, I'd probably have a ton of gray in there. I wouldn't be almost looking like the Ice King. I'm not that bad off. Either way, I better shut up. I'm rambling now. Let's continue this and play.
Not quite enough, though, to keep it anywhere but conveniently on his waist. As Simon and Marcy make their way through the abandoned city, we get one last unmitigated sweet moment between the pair, as Simon has to convince the confident little Marcy to accept a piggyback ride, as it becomes evident that Marcy was just as stubborn 1,000 years ago as she is in the modern day. After the great joke with Simon telling Marcy to cover her ears after he's disappointed by the contents of the clambulance, we get to the final chase scene that ends the main story of the episode. While Simon fleeing with his adopted half-demon daughter is a fairly short scene, it does do its one goal extraordinarily well, which is to show how genuinely desperate Simon is. Through the rapid animation, Tom Kenny's terrific voice acting, and a score that amplifies the scene even further, the episode does such a great job in showing how out of options Simon was before him and Marcy even reached the dead end, which of course is necessary to make the audience not blame him for breaking his promise to Marcy and putting the crown back on. While the idea of Rebecca Sugar's last time boarding an Adventure Time episode featuring a song not written by her seems underwhelming at first, I'm not sure there's another song in the series that so perfectly fits the moment as Simon repeating the Cheers theme from earlier in the episode.
Pause. Okay, so yeah, seeing the story in this format, it honestly makes me feel like he is in the right to put the crown on. And I understand that Marceline didn't want him to do it. She's also got the mind frame of a young girl who's just needing someone to protect her, and she knows that the more he uses that, the less likely she's going to be to continue to have him there. And she's also seeing him as a friend and all these things, and she just all she wanted was him to not use the crown. But with her mind frame being, you know, she's young, she doesn't understand that sometimes you got to do what you got to do to take care of the ones you love. So in that moment, Ice King's like, you know, bump it. We got all these ooze creatures coming after us. I'm going to put the crown on. I'm going to save your life at minimum, even if it means me losing myself. So in all reality, yes, he's doing a noble thing. He's doing what's right in this instance. He's doing what he knows to be right as a surrogate parent. He's not actually her parent. Yes, we know this. But as the surrogate parent in this moment, he's doing what he has to do to protect her. And sorry about that jump cut there, but you know, hey, things happen, so let's continue with this little video here and find out more about this story and play.
As he tries to not lose himself to the crown once again. The manic instrumental that accompanies his vocals feels familiar to that of Remember You, as he becomes almost visually indistinguishable from Ice King. The lyrics also make a bit more sense to talk about here, as Simon sings of giving everything he has just to get through the day, and desperately just wanting to take a break around those who know him, something that hits even harder with the knowledge that the crown he's wearing is going to cause him to forget not only his own name, but also the connection that he has with the young petrified girl he currently has locked in a car. Just as Simon's glasses being partially cracked at the beginning of the episode symbolized him slowly losing his sanity and his touch with who he once was, the last shot of him demolishing the oozers shows his glasses laying destroyed in the snow, as he continues to go deeper towards the point of no return.
Balls. Okay, so that is definitely quite an image when you think about it in that way. His glasses, not quite destroyed, but both lenses are now fractured and cracked, and he's no longer going to be able to see the same way through those same glasses again, which is a good metaphor because he's no longer going, thanks to the crown, no longer going to be able to think the same way again, since he's lost so much of himself with being the Ice King once again to get rid of those oozers. So yeah, and then on top of that, where I'm stopped at right now is a Swiss Army knife and a chicken drink, aka soup. So that's where I've got it paused. Hopefully I don't have it like paused for y'all within like a millisecond too early or a millisecond too late and it's some other screen. But quite the image I'm seeing with all of that effort to find that chicken noodle soup with the Swiss Army knife that has a can opener right there, for him to now lose his being and not be able to give it to her and make himself feel like he actually protected her in some sort of form or fashion. So yeah, that was, wow. Okay, so there's a lot, that's a lot right there to take in all at once. So let's continue this because I think there's it looks like 3 minutes left of this whole video. So I'm gonna probably power through this and probably have like 2, 3, maybe 4 stops in between because I've got to stop and call the wife and all that good stuff. So let's continue this and play.
And even though Marcy's illness is solved by the mother gum giving her the soup that she needed, the show makes sure to note that this is not a happy ending, as even with the crown off, Simon isn't entirely there, as the flashback ends with one final gut punch.
Pause. And I have a feeling I know what she's about to say right there, but there's a new person I need to figure out. Mother Gum ended up giving him that chicken noodle soup and stuff. So, okay, cool. I'll have to figure out who that is. I have a feeling that they might end up being related to Princess Bubblegum somehow. We'll find out in another later video. But, yeah, okay. He still lost himself a little bit in there. And he knows he won't ever be the same after that last time of using the crown. And then we're probably about to have that big old gut punch of Marceline saying, I love you. So, let's continue and
I love you, Simon.
I love you, Gunter.
Back to the frame story, it's a fairly short scene, with Simon completely missing that the story was supposed to be sad.
Balls. He said Gunter. That messed my mind up right there. I wanted to pause it right away when I heard him say, I love you too, Gunter. Oh my gosh. And that's, of course, why we have so many penguins named Gunter. So, makes it sad, but yeah. Let's continue and play.
Or was about him, and Finn and Jake watching him with a newfound perspective on the guy they called Ancient Chubbs at the beginning of the episode. And more so than anything else, that's the lasting legacy of this episode for the series. As while Holly Jolly Secrets revealed Simon's past as a human, and I Remember You revealed that he saved Marcy, this episode is the first time we actually get to see the character for an extended period of time, flaws and all. The reason that Simon's portrayal in this episode is so impactful is because while you can tell that he genuinely wants the best for Marcy, he's also woefully unprepared for the situation that he's found himself in. And it's this humanization of Simon as a somewhat flawed character that allows the audience to feel so terrible for everything he goes through in this episode, and the implication that this is just one example of the horrors of losing himself to the crown. And while the structure of this episode is on the surface somewhat simple, with a character making a promise and then being forced to break it, this episode diverts from that trope by not expecting you to pick sides, but instead sympathize with the horrible situation that both characters have been put in. As while Simon never had any choice but to put on the crown in the end and break Marcy's heart, she obviously was going to feel devastated watching the only person in her life slowly destroy his mind and body.
Pause. Okay, so there's also that, now that I think about this aspect here, Marcy actually does understand when she's looking out that window at Simon putting that crown back on, that there is no other way, that she knows that her friend there has to do that in order to save both their lives. So yeah, oh my gosh. And now there's so many different, I'm gonna try to remember to say stuff after I'm done with finishing this video. I've got a couple things in my head, but I don't feel like it kind of fits with where I paused. So, but yeah, seeing her look out the car window at him as he's putting the crown on, she doesn't want him to break the promise, but she knows he has to. So even at that young age, she does already understand. So I'm going to hit play and continue. I'm probably going to end up letting it play out and just kind of, you know, letting it play, because it's like a minute and some odd seconds. But if I pause it, I pause it. If I don't, I don't. And play.
But whereas I Remember You ended in its saddest moment, Simon and Marcy does have a somewhat happy ending back in the present, as we see the weight lifted off Marceline as she's able to tell somebody about her and Simon's past. Finn and Jake continue to see Simon in a more empathetic light, and most importantly of all, Ice King seems happy to be around people who actually want to be around him, something that he presumably didn't have for a very, very long time. Anyway, that's about it for me. As you guys hopefully know, assuming I got this video done when I wanted to, we are 15 hours away from Fiona and Cake at the time of this being uploaded. And as of now, I'm planning on covering the season weekly. I will say that, since I'm both a slow writer and the busiest I've ever been, it's going to take me a few days to get these videos out. So if it's Wednesday morning and my video on Thursday's episodes still haven't come out yet, you should check my Twitter before just assuming that I've given up. But with that out of the way, this has been April Samuel, and the next time I see you, I'll be talking about New Adventure Time. And man, is that weird to say. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so yeah, okay. So in my head, I thought I had many more things to say about the stuff, and I had it in my head. I was going to say it, but now I halfway forgot what it was. So I'm just going to wing it like I always do when it comes to doing these afterthoughts and stuff like that. It's a heartbreaking story. I don't feel like this explanation, honestly, for me, For me, I don't feel like this explanation has done the story of them justice whatsoever. But I'm going to go with this anyway because I don't want to pick another video and then try to pretend that I don't know what's going on and I haven't ever seen nothing and this and that. I don't like to pretend in that sort of way. So I'm going to use this, and if there is something that much better, then you know what? We'll readjust and we'll just do a part 7 and call it like Marceline and Simon part whatever. I don't know. We'll figure that out. But it is definitely a heartbreaking tale between two people that desperately needed each other. One person who had to lose himself in order to protect the other one as much as possible. And another person who had to witness that one person that they cared about most lose themselves in order to protect them. So it's just heartbreaking all around for everything. And then on top of that, the ending with Ice King, with Marceline, Finn, and Jake. And now he's just blissfully living life, unaware that the story that Marceline was telling, I was going to say saying, but unaware that the story that she was telling, though, was about him and her. And he doesn't remember anything of the past whatsoever. And she's just left there with the Ice King and the memories that he used to be somebody who was there to protect her, and now he's kind of, I don't know how to phrase what I'm thinking in my head. Everything makes sense in my head right here, and everything wants to come out, but without getting my thoughts, out there and written down or something like that, I don't really know where to go with these thoughts, because I've halfway said a lot of what I want to say, such as, it's a sad story about two people, one losing himself and can't help it because he has to lose himself to protect her and all this stuff. But then, okay, so now my mind's going back to the glasses. Okay, so I know I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. It is just what it is. This is the afterthoughts directly after watching it. But now my mind is going towards the glasses, and yes, at the beginning of it, he's got one crack right there in the glasses. Just the one, which means to tell us that, yes, he's already got a fractured mind because of the ice, the crown. But as the episode goes on, then we get more cracks and more cracks and more and more and more as the whole episode goes on, until the final time that he uses the crown that one last time, which fractures him to the point of no return, and we see the glasses on the ground, broken in both eyes. Cause it feels like that's a metaphor for me, where we got one half of your mind, it's fractured, but you still have this other half that sees clearly, so you're still good to go. Hopefully what I'm saying makes sense. But with this other half, you can see your vision clearly over here. Your mind isn't fully fractured. You still got a chance as long as you don't use that crown anymore. But then at that last time, you're fully fractured. You'll never be the same. And you've used so much of the Ice King's power that it fully messed you up. Granted, yes, I know there's also the stories and the metaphors of Ice King being like a metaphor for, like, I think Alzheimer's, or however you pronounce it. I know I'm horrible with pronunciation, y'all. I do know there's that aspect as well. So Marcy and Simon's relationship is so freaking complicated, because my mind is also racing towards that. A lot of people say it's a metaphor for, Ice King is a metaphor for, people with dementia and Alzheimer's. And then I'm kind of like, oh. And then we got Marcy over here who has to watch this, and, you know, she feels bad for him. But there's so much. Their story has so much to it. So we also get the perspective of Ice King having Alzheimer's / dementia. But then we also got the perspective of someone who's a family member of someone like that. That's also represented in Marceline. So she has to live with watching this. So, I don't know. I know my thoughts are all scattered. If we want to talk about it in a single subject matter, let's jump down to the comments section. Let's talk about it there, because I can tell you right now, if I keep talking, my thoughts are going to be 15 different directions, and I'm going to want to try to talk about all 15 of them at the same time and make no sense like I have been making for the last, 4 or 5 minutes? So I need to shut up. I need to pass it off to y'all. Y'all know the drill by now if you've been here long enough to see one of my outros. Hit that like, wait, that's not how you do it. Hit that like, tickle to subscribe. Don't be texting and driving. Watch what you love and love what you watch, and take it away, Mr. Rogers.
I like you just the way you are.